Guys, I am here today to talk to you about Olivia for my case study. And just an FYI, I am using Nimbus to record for you today. This is sweet Olivia. Olivia was in my third grade class last year. She's 9 years old and she will be in fourth grade this upcoming school year. Olivia was adopted by her mom when she was 2 years old. Her mom is also a foster parent, so she's very used to having lots of noise and distractions in her house and lots of different kids coming in and out. Olivia was diagnosed with sleep apnea and ADHD. Her sleep apnea really affects her day at school in terms of focus. Olivia would often take quick little naps throughout the day to help her refocus her energy in my classroom. Some of Olivia's strengths are that she follows school expectations. She is the sweetest friend to so many people. Her compassion and consideration for others and their feelings is truly remarkable, and I think that comes from how she's raised at home, having so many different people in and out of her house. She's a hard worker and very self-motivated. She just needs very clear directions to help get started. She's creative, and I admire her ability to work in pairs and groups, and I love her smile. She's got the sweetest smile. So Olivia as a reader, Olivia really enjoys reading at school, but not so much at home. She loves nonfiction when she is reading. She loves to read books about sports and animals. I believe that Olivia benefits from partner reading, and this past year she really made a lot of growth in my classroom. She started the year at a level J and ended at a level M. We really want readers going into fourth grade to be at a P when they leave. But looking at her considerate amount of growth, we are so proud of her for making that growth. I think this year Olivia developed several decoding strategies to help her. And she also got much better at answering questions after reading a text. Olivia loves writing. Here you can see her writing away. She has incredible stamina. She almost always includes the beginning, middle, and end of a story. And she has lots of strategies for generating ideas. She makes lists, she sketches pictures, she walks around the room to collect ideas. She really does not struggle with craft or thinking of stories. What she does have some room for improvement on is punctuation, paragraphing, and grammar. So the assessments that I gave together during our tutoring sessions were the Reading Attitude Survey, the Garfield, the Multidimensional Fluency Test, the Closed Test, Oral Story Retelling, and the QRI. Oops, says the ORI. The QRI, you guys know. So here is Olivia's results to the Garfield survey. She was pretty indifferent about reading. So the first part of the survey talks about recreational reading, so reading for fun. She scored about a 53% in that, which the survey, when you analyze these surveys, it said that anything around a 50% means you're indifferent to reading or you're interested in it. So recreational reading, she's pretty indifferent to it, as well as academic reading. It was a little lower at 47%. Her full scale was 78%. And just after talking to Olivia and knowing Olivia, I think she's really a pleaser, and she really would love to tell me that she loves reading, but I know that it's something that she struggles with, and it can be hard for her. And so I think she doesn't actually love it, but she works really hard, which is amazing. Here is the Multidimensional Fluency Survey, which I ended up really liking this one, and I made copies of that scale, and I'm going to throw those in my conferencing binder this year because I think it's a really easy little assessment that you can give pretty informatively during reading conferences. So what I learned from this fluency test was that Olivia reads really quietly. She does not really sound very natural when she reads. She reads in like 2 to 3 word phrases. She has specific difficulty with words she gets stuck on. She gets stuck and she pauses for long periods of time to try to figure the word out, and It just really, really inhibits her fluency. And then she's pretty slow. When she reads, it's pretty robotic. So her final score came out to be a 9. It said that a 10 would be an indicator of good progress in fluency. So she was below the baseline, which I was not surprised about because it's something I've been concerned about. And I don't think I spent enough time this year in this classroom focusing on fluency. So definitely a goal for me with Olivia is working on that fluency with her. I also gave her the oral story retelling. And so I gave her a passage from ReadWorks that I found. And right after she read it independently. And I said, retell the story to me and tell me as much as you remember. So I was also very surprised by this assessment. I thought Olivia would have done much better on this. She really didn't give me much at all. And she actually started telling me, she did not start at the beginning. She started almost over halfway through the story where the girl goes for a walk with her mom to get ice cream. So there was a lot of events that happened before that first bullet point she told me. She then said they saw sandcastles and they want to go earlier next year to see the sandcastles again. She was very vague, and then she was done. She really sat there kind of staring at me, not knowing what to say next. So the assessment actually says if kids don't tell you very much to prompt them, and they give you these 6 specific prompts that you can use. So I circled the ones that I used. So I said, how does the story begin? She told me in the sand, which was true, but she didn't really name characters that were in the sand. She didn't give a lot of detail about what they were doing in the sand. So then I had to ask her who the characters were, and then she told me. I asked her what the problem in the story was, and she had no idea what the problem was. And then I asked her what the most important thing that happened in the story was. She talked about the walk that her and her mom went on, which is actually true, but it was more about the conversation they had during the walk. So I learned from this that Olivia identifies main characters, but she can't elaborate. She could tell me who the characters were, but she couldn't tell me much about them or their character traits or their personalities. She provided fragmented information related to the beginning, middle, and end. So story structure, she needs some focus on being able to retell stories. Some of her details were inaccurate or irrelevant, and she required 4 of the prompting questions. I also gave Olivia the close vocab assessment. This was probably my least favorite of all the assessments just because the information I'm not really sure what to do with this information. So I gave her a closed passage with 23 blank words. She needed to identify the words exactly. She was able to identify 12 of them exactly. So 12 divided by 23 was a 52%, which put her right at an instructional level. So I guess what this told me was that her vocabulary within that level of text is appropriate. So she's at the right level because she's reading a text where she is instructional. So that text would just need to be read during guided reading or a small group on her instructional level. Then finally, the magical, wonderful QRI. Here was the word list results. I gave Olivia the primer, and she got all of them right at 100%. The first grade, 100%. Second grade, she was instructional at an 85%. Third grade, instructional at a 75%. And then fourth grade, this was so interesting to me, she dropped significantly down to a 40%. And you'll see later when I talk about her passages how the same thing sort of happens with her passages, which was interesting to me. So here's the summary of her results. I gave her the second grade narrative, The Lucky Cricket. Her familiarity on all of the assessments was not good. She was very unfamiliar with what was going on. Her accuracy at this was a 96, so she was in the instructional level. Her acceptability was a 98, which was independent. And then I was really, really shocked to see that she frustrated out on the comprehension questions. But with lookbacks, which I know we had some discussion about lookbacks, but I did let her look back, and then she scored at an independent level after lookbacks, but I kept the not lookbacks in here for reference. Her words per minute were within the norm of that second grade level. So based on all of this information, I put her at an instructional level. So my version of the book said you could stop there, but I just wasn't really satisfied. I wanted to figure out more, because I just was wondering if she didn't have enough background information about this text. I didn't really prompt her very much because the assessment doesn't ask you to do that. So I just wanted to see what she could do with another one. So the next time we met, and the interesting thing was, you guys can see with this assessment, she scored pretty similar to the first one. So she was at a 94%, just 2% lower, still instructional. She was instructional with the acceptability. And actually, her comprehension on the third grade level was higher, which is very fascinating to me. I think it was because she had a little bit more background knowledge, which it didn't say that here. But me just knowing her personally, I thought she had a little bit more background knowledge about. We have a lot of ELL kids in our class. We did, and this passage kind of referenced that. So she had some knowledge of working with kids who didn't speak English. Her words per minute on this were outside the norm. She was really below. And this did not surprise me because we talked about that fluency earlier. This showed me how her fluency really does need some help. And then I did try the fourth grade, and the same thing with that word list. She just totally frustrated out on all of it. I mean, I really wanted to stop because it was kind of painful to listen to her read, but I did keep going, and you can see the results here are pretty frustrating. So, some instructional implications that I made. We set a reading goal. I set a reading goal for her for fluency. The goal is phrasing, so putting words together into meaningful groups within a sentence. And then her writing goal is summarizing, developing and demonstrating reading skills in response to a text by summarizing a story's beginning, middle, and end, and the lesson or moral of the story, and then being able to write that down. And Olivia set a goal for herself to make sure she's reading every single day. And I asked her how she would do that, and she said that she would have her mom remind her that she needed to do it, and that she would try really hard to find a quiet spot in her house to read. So I have 2 lessons that I wrote for Olivia. The first was a reading lesson, and then about fluency, and then the second was a writing lesson about summarizing. So let me show you. The first lesson, I pulled some of this from Lucy Calkins' third grade If Then book, and then I pulled some of it from Jennifer Saravallo's Reading Strategies book. So the connection was to play a quick video of a robot for Olivia, and a robot talking specifically, and then to have a discussion with her about what a robot sounds like and how they sound when they talk, and then comparing that to a reader and what a good reader sounds like, and having that discussion. And then the teaching point for this lesson was, today I want to teach you that instead of reading word by word, try to scoop up a few words at a time, reading all the words in one scoop together in one breath before pausing, then scoop up the next few words. So my modeling went like this. I showed her an example of robot reading. I said, so this is what a robot would sound like. This is what good readers should not sound like. This is a dog. He likes to play. I said, instead of sounding like a robot, Olivia, we need to scoop up the words that make sense together, and we need to use our finger to track those. So then I showed her, this is a dog. He likes to play ball. And so I demonstrated that for her. And she totally got it. She picked up on it right away, and she was eager and ready to try using the book we'd been reading together called The Twits by Roald Dahl. So I prompted her using some questions like, what words will you scoop up together? Make sure you remember to scoop under those words using your finger. Now read those words in one breath, and try it again and practicing again. Make sure, and then I would do a little more modeling. She'd repeat after me. And then I let her try doing it on her own for a little bit. And then whenever she was ready to show off her good reading to me, I let her do that. And she did a great job with it. So this little sticky note here is kind of an example of what you did. So be sure to read in phrases. So that's sort of the lesson right there in itself. And then the next writing lesson we did was the 5-sentence summary. So we started just by talking about summaries, and because I know she has knowledge of summaries, and I asked her if she ever saw the movie The Minions, which I knew she had, and we kind of worked together to pick out the most important parts of the Minions from the beginning to the end. And it was great. She loved doing it together, kind of got her engaged in the activity. And then I told her the teaching point. I said, Olivia, today I'm going to teach you that when good readers finish a text, they ask, what are the 5 most important events in the order they happened? And then they then you tell yourself out loud across your fingers those 5 important events. And then you write them down. Each event equals 1 sentence, so 5 sentences. Then I modeled this for her using a text we had read together earlier in the summer called Sylvester and the Magic Pebble. And I went through and very carefully traced my hand on a piece of paper. And then I pointed to my first finger and said, first, Sylvester found a magic pebble that made his wishes come true. And then I went through each one using those transition words. Then I asked Olivia if she was ready to try it on her own or if she needed to see another example. And she told me she was ready. And we used the text Amos and Boris, which we had actually read earlier in that session that day. And she did it across her fingers. She had fun tracing her hand. And then finally for her send-off, I had her write her sentences, and she did a really good job with all of it. So this was my case study on Olivia. I wish that I could do this with every single kid in my class throughout the year. Don't know where I'd find the time, but you really, really learn so much about a kid when you do all these assessments. And I was happy to see that it was really pretty easy to make some goals after doing those assessments. So thank you for listening, and I will see you guys at the end of August.